One English town still has a queue outside the same bakery that opened in 1953. The baker's grandson is running it. He doesn't have an Instagram. He doesn't need one. Across England, tucked behind hedgerows and down lanes that sat-navs refuse to acknowledge, there are towns that looked at the modern world, considered it carefully, and said no thank you. And here's the thing. These places aren't museums. They've got pubs, post offices, market days, and neighbours who know your name before you've introduced yourself. Today we're counting down 10 English towns where the 1950s never quite ended. No heritage theme parks, no retro branding, just real places where time checked the schedule, shrugged, and went back inside. Stay till number 1. It's been used as a film set for 4 separate period dramas, and the locals don't even blink anymore. Like this, if you've ever walked past a new build and felt a grief you couldn't explain. Subscribe so you don't miss our follow-up on towns where even the Wi-Fi arrives slightly late. England didn't freeze by accident. Listed building laws, village preservation orders, and parish councils, with the quiet ferocity of a territorial badger, all conspired to keep certain towns exactly as they were. Add a deep cultural suspicion of anything that arrived after 1962, and you get pockets of the country where the decades simply didn't stick. These aren't accidents, they're choices. Number 10. Whippy, North Yorkshire. You step off the train and the first thing that hits you is the smell. Salt, kippers, and something smoked you can't place but immediately associate with a grandmother you never had. Fishing boats, seagulls working hard, a man selling jet jewellery from a wooden stall like it's still the done thing, because here it is. Population just over 13,000. Median house price around £18,000, roughly a car parking space in London. Violent crime below the national average. Cost of living 18% lower than the UK baseline. Economy built on fishing, tourism, and a loyalty to the independent high street that borders on civic religion. A TripAdvisor reviewer. Went for a weekend, felt like I'd gone back 40 years, cried a little on the way home, and I'm not entirely sure why. Not one chain restaurant on the upper harbour front. The same family-run chippies serving haddock during the coronation are serving it now. The jet jewellery trade, black gemstone, hand-carved, never died. You can buy a piece from a craftsman who learnt the technique from his father, who learned it from his. February, though, the fog comes in off the sea, and it comes in personally. It doesn't reduce visibility. It makes a decision about you. Roads close. The Abbey vanishes. You go to the chip shop because there is genuinely nothing else to do. And if you moved here from Manchester expecting a winter social life, manage your expectations aggressively. Picture the 199 steps to the Abbey on a clear October morning. The town below you, red-roofed and compact. The harbour, a flat silver mirror. A man tips his cap at you for no reason. A woman is hanging washing out of a window that overlooks the whole North Sea like it's a perfectly ordinary view, because for her it is. You've been here 4 hours and already know the name of the woman who runs the bakery. This is the pace. This is the temperature of life here. Whitby is frozen beautifully, but the next town makes Whitby look cutting edge, because in this one, the heritage officer will ring you if you paint your gate the wrong shade of cream. Number 9. Lavenham, Suffolk. Lavenham doesn't look real. The timber-framed buildings lean toward each other across the street at angles that suggest a polite, ongoing disagreement. Nothing is straight. Everything is extraordinary. Population around 1,700. Median house price approximately £39,000. You're paying for a postcard and you know it. Crime rates so low, the local news covers disputed allotment boundaries. Employment mostly tourism, agriculture, and the quiet profession of simply being from Lavenham. A local on a Suffolk forum. We had a heritage officer come round because my neighbour considered a different shade of fence paint. Considered. Didn't even do it. Lavenham's Guildhall has stood since 1529. The town was wealthy in the medieval wool trade, declined before industrialisation, and was therefore never demolished and rebuilt. It simply stayed. The 1950s preserved what the centuries had already started. The catch: you cannot change anything. A man tried to install a modern door handle and received a letter, an actual letter, from the council in an envelope. In the 21st century, if you like personalising your space, Lavenham will make you quietly, beautifully, irreversibly insane. Picture cycling in on a September morning, mist low over the sheep fields, the timber frames emerging out of the grey, like something from a dream you had once but couldn't describe properly the next morning. A pot of tea in a tea room that's been a tea room since before the NHS. The woman behind the counter knows the names of everyone who comes in. She knows yours by your second visit. Everything smells of wood smoke and damp stone. You feel, briefly, like the world sorted itself out while you weren't looking. Lavenham is a painting. The next town is the Frame, and the Frame is a listed building in its entirety. Number 7. Burford, Oxfordshire. Burford's High Street is a listed building. Not the building buildings on it, the street itself, the gradient, the width, the stone, the way it runs down to the river bridge, protected as one unified historic environment. Several chains have applied to open here. The council keeps a template refusal letter permanently in the printer, or so it seems. Population around 1400. Median house price around £5,000. Cotswolds pricing, which is its own category of financial distress. Crime nearly invisible. Strong for remote workers who arrived, looked at the stone cottages and quietly cancelled their London leases. Reddit. Pleasantville, but with better cheese and a medieval church that's been there longer than the concept of England. The Church of St. John the Baptist contains graffiti carved by a leveller soldier imprisoned there in 1649. That's the kind of history Burford just has lying around. The tea rooms and wool merchants' houses operating now operated in exactly the same way in 1953. August is the problem. Summer Burford is briefly not Burford. It becomes a car park with a village attached. The historically significant high street fills with people photographing it instead of using it. Locals develop a particular expression. It is not unfriendly. It is the patience of people who have been managing this since the 1970s. Picture the high street on a January weekday. Frost on the stone. Nobody here but you and a man with a Labrador. A bakery open. A bookshop open. The church unlocked as always. The silence is the loudest thing in Oxfordshire. Burford will charm you into poverty. But if you think Burford's council is protective of its past, the next town never got rid of its town crier. Number 6. Wymondham, Norfolk. Wymondham, pronounced Wyndham, and locals will note your mispronunciation warmly but immediately, has a market cross that stood since 1617, a market running since a charter granted in 1204, and an actual functioning town crier who rings a bell and makes announcements, and nobody finds this unusual because it isn't unusual here. Population around 14,000, median house price around £26,000, cost of living 17% below the national figure, economy anchored in agriculture, independent retail and commuters who drive to Norwich and return to somewhere that smells like baking. Local forum. My sat-nav has given up navigating the town centre 3 separate times. I now consider this a feature. Wymondham Abbey, founded 1107, still the visual and spiritual centre of the town. The Green Dragon pub, licensed since the 16th century. The railway station, built 1845, painted every year since nationalisation, winner of Best Kept Station Awards, it clearly takes seriously. Norfolk's relationship with urgency is philosophical, not practical. Things happen at the pace they happen. If you need something done quickly, you'll need to explain what quickly means and negotiate downward. This is not inefficiency. It is a position held with tremendous quiet confidence. Picture a Wednesday market. Vegetables with actual soil on them. A man selling homemade chutney from a folding table. The abbey enormous and calm behind it all. A woman arguing about parsnip prices with genuine emotional investment. This is what a community looks like. You'd almost forgotten. The next town took the market town to an extreme. It's the highest in England, and modernity couldn't handle the climb. Number 5. Alston, Cumbria. Alston is where the modern world ran out of breath. Over 1,000 feet above sea level in the North Pennines, the highest market town in England, and that altitude has served as a remarkably effective filter for chain retail, urban sprawl, and anyone who gave up before the last bend. Population around 2,000, median house price around £17,000. Crime effectively negligible. Economy built on tourism, farming, and the South Tyndale Railway, a narrow-gauge heritage line that potters through the valley and is treated by locals as entirely normal infrastructure. Cumbria Life Letter. Moved here in 2019. The road closed for a week in February. I had more conversations with neighbours that week than in 5 years in Leeds. The market cross still stands where it stood in 1820. The town centre retains its Victorian and Georgian character intact because lead mining declined before anyone thought to redevelop. The community post office has the settled permanence of something that has simply always been there. The A686 in winter becomes a theoretical road. It exists on maps, but not always on the ground. Snow, ice, and a crosswind you'll remember forever. You wanted remote. This is remote with a capital R and several exclamation marks. Picture June in Alston. The valley below you impossibly green. The narrow gauge train whistling somewhere out of sight. A farmer nods from a Land Rover modified beyond recognition. You get a coffee from the deli that opened 6 years ago and is the single most modern thing in a 3-mile radius, and even it feels like it's been there forever. The news feels very far away. Everything is fine. Everything is quiet. This is the whole point. Alston is where England goes to think. The next town never needed to. It declared independence from the UK in 1977 and still seems to mean it. Number 3. Hay-on-Wye, Wales border. border. In 1977, Richard Booth declared Hay-on-Wye an independent kingdom, crowned himself king and appointed his horse as prime minister. This was partly a publicity stunt, partly, if you spend any time here, a completely sincere worldview. Population around 1,500. Median house price around £27,000. Crime negligible. Economy built entirely on roughly 30 second-hand bookshops for a town of 1,500 people. And a literary festival every May that temporarily makes this border village the most intellectually dense place in Britain. Guardian reader, I came for a book. I left with 14, a watercolour, and a sense that the rest of my life had been slightly misdirected. The bookshops are the proof. One operates from a Norman castle, another from a Victorian fire station. The whole town is a living, repurposing project begun in the 1960s, frozen in the 1970s, and maintained in glorious suspension ever since. The market town underneath, Butter Market, Clock Tower, cattle pens, is 1950s rural border England, undisturbed. If you have a book buying problem, do not come to Hay. Do not come within 30 miles of it. People have arrived with a budget and a boot full of space and left with neither. This is not a warning. This is an accurate prediction about you specifically. Picture a Tuesday in October, rain on the Brecon beacons visible from the high street. You're in a bookshop that was once a cinema, 30 feet of ceiling above you, 50,000 books below it. A cat asleep on biography. Someone has left a note in a 1961 John Wyndham novel that you'll think about for years. No closing time visible anywhere. Hay declared independence and nobody argued. But number 2 didn't need to declare anything. It has 700 people, a pub unchanged since Churchill, and a chalk figure on the hillside that predates embarrassment entirely. Number 2, Cerne Abbas, Dorset. Cerne Abbas has 700 people, no shop, a pub licensed since the 16th century, and a 180-foot chalk figure carved into the hill above the village that has been looking down at it for somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 years. The village below hasn't changed dramatically in that time. The giant seems satisfied with the arrangement. Population 700. Median house price approximately £38,000. Dorset pricing for the privilege of living inside a Thomas Hardy novel. Crime statistically invisible. This is not a town you move to for your career. It's a town you move to because you've made a decision about what your life is actually for. Dorset Property Forum. The estate agent described it as well connected to Dorchester. It is not. It is well connected to the 14th century. The new inn has been continuously licensed since the 16th century. Its interior feels like it skipped the 1950s because it never left the 1940s. The church is medieval. The street plan is medieval. The giant on the hill is maintained by the National Trust, an organisation founded in 1895, which is itself practically modern by Cerne Abbas standards. 700 people is not a population. It's a WhatsApp group. Everyone knows everything about everyone by Thursday. Privacy isn't abolished. It's just not meaningfully available. You'll be welcomed warmly and known completely within 6 weeks. Picture a Sunday morning in July. Church bells. The giant visible on the hill, enormous and unbothered. A tractor. The only traffic on the only road. 3 children doing something with sticks in the stream that children have probably been doing in that exact stream for 500 years. The pub chalkboard going up for lunch. He's been doing it 11 years. The chalk figure above has been doing his thing for 20 centuries. Both seem perfectly content. Cerne Abbas is ancient England made daily and ordinary. But for the town that tops this list, so perfectly preserved that film crews use it as a working backlot, we need to go to Lincolnshire. Number 1, Stamford, Lincolnshire. Stamford is where England kept the good copy. A Georgian market town of such unhurried, stone-built completeness that 4 period dramas have filmed on its streets since 2010, including Middlemarch and Pride and Prejudice, and the locals have stopped noticing the cameras. The high street is local limestone, the colour of warm honey. 5 medieval churches sit across a town of 20,000 people, as if this is simply what towns come with. The River Welland runs under bridges that have been there for centuries. There is a Waitrose. There is also an independent butcher trading for over 100 years. Both are busy. Both fit. Population around 21,000. Median house price around £33,000. Crime well below national average. Cost of living 12% below the UK baseline. Remarkable for somewhere this beautiful. Unemployment around 3.2%. Job market solid across professional services, healthcare, and a retail sector that kept its independence while everywhere else lost them. Lincolnshire life. I've lived in Stamford 30 years. It still makes me stop on the way home sometimes just to look at it. Not many places do that after 30 years. Stamford was the first town in England designated designated an area of outstanding natural beauty for its urban architecture, not countryside, buildings in 1967. The Stamford Mercury, published since 1695, is the oldest continuously running newspaper in Britain. It was printing local news before the American colonies existed. The almshouses off Brown's Hospital date from 1485. The town doesn't do retro, it simply never stopped. The one complaint: if you're under 35 and you move here, you will be asked what brought you, with a warmth that contains a small but detectable note of surprise. The evening economy closes at a reasonable hour, and everyone considers this entirely sensible. The nightlife is 2 pubs and a restaurant, and they're wonderful, and they close at 11. If that sounds ideal, you are ready for Stamford. Picture a Wednesday morning in late September. You walk out of your stone terrace onto a street Charles Dickens could have written. The limestone is the exact gold that photographers drive here specifically to capture. You pass 3 people on the way to the bakery. You know all 3 by name. Your baker knows your order. The market is being set up in St Mary's Place the way it has been set up every Wednesday for centuries. Church bells do the time. You are in 21st century England, and you are also indisputably somewhere that looks exactly like 1955. And unlike 1955, you get to choose to stay. These towns didn't survive by accident. They survived because enough people, generation after generation, decided some things were worth the inconvenience of keeping. The awkward street plan, the drafty medieval window, the market that goes ahead in the rain because it's gone ahead in the rain since 1204 and it isn't stopping now. That stubbornness is what the rest of England quietly envies. Not the past itself, just the knowledge that something was worth holding on to. Like this, if you'd move to any of these tomorrow. Subscribe if your retirement plan involves a stone cottage, a market day, and a baker named Derek who doesn't have Instagram. Drop a comment. Which town would you choose? And which one would break you within a fortnight?